Welcome to week 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. This is Raven, I'm Falcone, and we are back to bring you the community show. Raven, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, actually. I enjoyed the Global Games last week. I enjoyed the show you and Lauren did as the recap of last year for Global Games. But I'm excited to be on the show and also to talk about what's coming up this week.
Yeah, we have got all sorts to talk about, starting with our favorite 5 plays from last week. Then we have a summary of what the results of last week are, including the team standings and the caster prediction standings, followed by an interview with RDU.
Yeah, and then, things get a little bit serious here in the HGG studio, and we discuss some very important points. And then we talk about what's coming up this week in terms of matches. And then we finally finish the show with you guys with a bit of a viewer Q&A, so you can get involved in some questions a little bit later on. That's going to be at the end of the show.
I'm always quite nervous for that one. I've got no faith in what the viewers want Twitch chat.
All the confidence in Twitch chat, it's fine.
Well, first, let's take a look at our favorite 5 plays from the first week of the Hearthstone Global Games. Starting with clip 5, which I believe is a Ragnaros hero power going very wrong.
Yeah, so this was the Russian Federation versus Brazil, and it's all even at 2-2. All Silvername has to do is hit face a few times with Ragnaros shot. Anyone who's played this deck knows that once you have this online, your quest is done. Deal 8 to face, go, go. Oh, okay, there's 1. Missed. Okay, fine, no problem. Couple of minions on board. Okay, we'll try again. And, oh, okay, yep. Okay, that's so far 0 hits to the face. Not really what you want against a very slow deck like Shudderwock.
This is just a spell damage totem. There's no way that... okay.
Yep, okay, third time lucky wasn't meant to be here. And this basically paints the story as it gets progressively more silly that Russian Federation cannot hit a rag shot to save their life or to save themselves in this tournament game, because this just gets worse. Are we on 6 now? 6? 5, 6 misses?
I think Silvername's pretty much just given up all faith in the Sulfurous hero power by this point. And a Taunt Totem doing its job, taunting, protecting the face. And finally, Grumble also eats up one of these charges, and then that's pretty much the end of the game.
It is. All this led just to the main point of, if you can't put pressure on the Shudderwock Shaman with an 8 damage a turn hero power, then yes, they will draw their threats, draw the combo, and kill you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that Lorinda and I have talked about quite a lot over the last week, in that the Taunt Warrior nowadays is much easier to control. You've usually got tools like Warpath, like the weapon, like Brawl, etc., to try and guarantee the hit on the face, but Silvername did not, and it all went very wrong.
It really did. It really, really did, because it just shouldn't have happened at all. But let's take a look at play number 4 that was on the list for us. There was definitely a lot of crazy moments in last week's of Hearthstone Global Games, but this was also one of them where I think one of the French players might have got a little bit ahead of themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of these clips, you should be prepared to see a lot of Shudderwock, because it was a very exciting card over the last week. But Kallax was very excited here, as he believed, as did I actually while casting it, that he had 100% won the game.
Yeah, with double Zola effects and then the Grumble effect as well as, of course, the Silent Chain Gang. Nothing really went that well with him. He's super happy and... There we go, we've all seen that. And feeling pretty confident about life right now, and you can't blame him. Up until this point, it's like, right, I have my 1 manas, and here we go. And the problem right now is that was his turn, and it leaves 1 Shudderwock on the board, and he has the 1 manas available. But there's only 2 minions frozen as we look on the other side of the board, Falc.
And that was the issue. Like, if just 1 more of those minions was frozen, and again, you've been making fun of me all week for this, as we see the reaction from Kallax as he realizes it's game over. But actually, the chances were, for this to go wrong, the chances were, I believe, 31 over 256, which is close to 1 in 8.
Yeah, really close to astronomical as well. But yeah, that just goes to the point that you shouldn't count your shudders until they have walked, and you need to finish up those games. But let's check out clip number 3 when we go into it as well, because we've got plenty more where that came from, at least in terms of shudder walks. But it's not really going to happen too much in this one.
We have a very important game here, though. It is between a Shudderwock Shaman and between an Odd Paladin. But what is this? What is going on?
This is how Czech Republic are currently the champions of global games. They're a lot of bananas. They have them spare, they have them ready. And also, I do like Finden just showing them how to peel a banana the correct way. Yes, you go from the bottom, not the top. Try it at home. We'll maybe do a tutorial video on how to do it for you guys another week, so you have to stay tuned for that one. But the Bananas seem to get the job done since, you know, they are doing pretty well. They did extremely well.
They did.
Last year as well.
They won both of their games in which they were eating the bananas. They then lost 2 games in a row, but there were no bananas in those games, and they did then win the series. But I think we've all learned a thing or two from Stan Sivka and the team Czech Republic about how important bananas are to Hearthstone gameplay.
Right, yeah, you can't really argue with that mathematics, or at least I can't anyway. But let's check out play number 2, see what's getting awfully close to that number 1 play.
And I believe we're back in Shudderwock Town, but not in the way that we like to be in Shudderwock Town, as Ting Tong had some real issues with the card.
And the town me and Sol were in at when we were casting this was just Loopy Town at this point. We had no clue what was gone. This game was extremely long, and what you will see right now is every time Shudderwock was played, the grumble did not affect... Boom! There we go. It did not hit the multiple Shudderwocks where you get the 1 mana Shudders getting ready to go. Every single time it was 9 mana, and that slowed the game down exceptionally.
I mean, what was really ridiculous is that, okay, there were 2 Zolas that had been played and 2 Cyanites and Grumble. That time, Zola managed to proc twice and put 2 Shudderwocks in the hand. But the next 2 Shudderwocks weren't able to put any other copies of itself back in the hand. So it's not just Grumble that was activating last, or first, but even the Zolas. And that just meant that this game was more difficult for New Zealand to win. Not to mention, Portugal were playing this very well.
They really were, yeah. And we see you know, how to build a Toad was what my mind was at the given time.
Oh, boy.
But triple Hex onto a target over a few turns. The Frog got a little bit angry, Bloodlust in there for pushing some damage, but it did continue to mean that it leads to a Lightning Bolt play this turn because you could not kill the Frog. Yeah. And Team New Zealand realized if they leave the Frog on the board, then Shudderwock has a additional failure rate attached to it. But again, the Grumble goes first, and what this means is not necessarily this turn, but the turn afters, with the lack of Grumbles, meant they couldn't play multiple Shudderwocks. It was one go up a turn.
This was it. There were no Shudderwocks allowed whatsoever.
Yeah, earlier on.
Yeah, sure. And there you go, Zuka able to clean up this board with the Voodoo Doll and the Doom Pact, and that ended the game. Not very often you see Control Mage beating Shudderwock Shaman.
It really isn't, no. And I will say as well that Voodoo Doll play was actually quite nice because it reduced the fatigue damage, in which you can see now played a large impact in the game. It meant the discards were actually 1 less, so it meant they could stay alive. So that was a pretty in-depth, and I think that was probably the most requested match to be discussed from last week. I tweeted out, you know, like, okay, guys, let me know if there's any cool matches that you want us to talk about more, maybe even highlight on this show. And straight away, I think within 60 seconds, Savitz had messaged me saying, oh, yeah, did you catch that Shudderwock? I was like, yes, I did, for a very long time.
It's also a very real look at what can go wrong if you play Hagatha and Shudderwock, though. Like in control matchups, you'd often prefer not to play the Hagatha because hand size issues are a real thing. And you saw having to play Hex 3 times on the same minion, it just leads to some... and then lightning bolting that same minion. It just leads to some absurd plays. Yeah,
it's a bit of a nutty game, but let's check out the match number 1 that we're going to get to the point here now is just as much a bit of a crazy game, but also a crazy reaction from someone who's a bit normally quite stony-faced. So at this point, as you can see, Nyria is very, very dead. There is nothing he has available until Hagatha helps him out just a little bit.
Yeah, it's a 1 in 31 chance to get the Healing Rain. He gets it. It's the one card that allowed Ukraine to stay in this game. The score is 2-2. Croatia almost about to take them down. And that would have been a bit of an upset, but Healing Rain saved the day. Nyria able to clean up that Mana Worm and just about stabilize for long enough for Croatia's Alunath to kill themselves through fatigue.
Yeah, Croatia did have a few options to help them out here, but it just wasn't quite enough in the way the game played out. As you can see, this is 2-2, so this led to the win from Team Ukraine. But also, just a final word for Nyria, if that isn't an emote in your stream, your face making that, I don't know, whatever that was, then it should be. It's a free tip.
Yeah, that was a really fun week last week, as we said at the start of the broadcast, and I'm looking forward to 7 more weeks just as fun as that. Let's take a look at the results from the first week of the Hearthstone Global Games, starting with the team standings. And there you go, 2 brackets at the moment, 1 and 0, 0 and 1. We're playing Swiss, so this week all of the 1 and 0s will be matched up against each other, and all of the 0 and 1s will be matched up against each other. Raven, is there anything that just sticks out to you here?
Yeah, I think we can start with a 0-1. So the teams that lost last week, obviously it's a very stacked tournament, so guess what? Some of the strong teams are going to take losses. Yep. That's just the way the tournament works. But when you see USA, Canada, No way. All of these teams, even Japan, to be completely honest, I'm putting Japan in this category. Even Japan is, when they're taking losses early on, it is very, very scary indeed, because the next time they get a loss, they can't really get a third and expect to get through to the stage. So you basically have 2 lives in this tournament. You've already used 1, and it's week 1. We're just going to week 2 right now.
And because the whole tournament is stacked, as you were saying, now the 0 and 1 bracket is stacked. And so we can see we've got games like the United Kingdom versus the United States coming up this week. It's going to be a tough competition. But speaking of tough competitions, we also have our caster predictions. For those of you that missed the show last week, we did a snake draft to decide who got what country. And as you can see currently, Derek is in the lead with 2 and 0 being his score.
Yeah, he's doing pretty okay. I'm still confident with my picks. Like I said, for me, I think it was more of a surprise to me that Canada took a loss, but it's a hard tournament. I think Canada's got what it takes to come back, and obviously, there's no question about South Korea. I'm pretty fine.
Some of the losses are really surprising, actually. I mean, for me, Italy won, but Netherlands lost. And yeah, okay, they were matched up against Germany, so it's tough competition.
Right.
Then look at Sato, like his losing team was the United States. So it's been a tough game for all of us, but like you said, 1 and 1. I'm happy with that score as well.
Absolutely fine. We've got plenty more weeks of HGG to get scorings out. I know from a lot of practice at these predictions, and I'm the true powerhouse behind Sol's victories most of the time.
Really?
I give him the inspiration that there's plenty more time. We've got all the time in the world to come back and get on top.
If only he were here to disagree with you. Right, one of the teams that weren't able to play on stream last week was Team Romania. However, they will be playing on stream this week. And many of you watching may know their captain and anchor, RDU. He's a very popular streamer and Hearthstone pro player, been around for a long time. And yesterday, I got the chance to sit down and have a long chat with him about what he thinks of the Hearthstone Global Games. Let's take a look. Hey, RDU. Thank you for joining us on the show. How are you doing?
Hi, nice to be here. Great.
Good to hear it. So before we get into the actual tournament itself, I want to talk a little bit about you. So firstly, I'd love to know what the Hearthstone Global Games means to you as a person.
So Hearthstone Global Games means to me a lot because BlizzCon was my favorite tournament by far, and I really want to make it back there. And on top of that, I get to play for my country and play together with my teammates and face teams that are considered stronger and show that the underdogs can win and have some sort of like Cinderella story.
Is that how you look at Team Romania, as underdogs?
I mean, most of the betting sites say that we are one of the weakest teams, and I want to prove them wrong.
Okay.
Like, also people from the community are just making fun of us, and we want to prove them wrong too.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I hope you do. Did you ever think when you first started playing Hearthstone that you'd be representing your country? Not even once, but for 2 years in a row?
Not really. Like, I started playing only for fun and because I like card games. But then once it developed and I was one of the only ones doing this for a living in Romania, I think the only one, then I kind of wanted to represent the country too, yeah.
Okay. And is there a lot of support for you guys competing in Romania? Is there a local scene cheering you on?
I think the local scene cheers us, but I don't know how much the local scene likes me. So they cheer for Team Romania, but I don't know how many Romanians actually cheer for me in particular.
Okay, why is that?
I don't know. I have no idea why. But like, most of the people that don't like me are, I think, from Romania. Even though a lot of people from Romania also like me.
Okay, all right. Bit of a split fan base you got there then.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing about Hearthstone Global Games for you then? You mentioned before that you'd love to go to BlizzCon. So is that what drives you forward, or is it the prize money? Is it for your community? Is it for your team? What do you think is the most important thing?
The most important thing for me is to get to BlizzCon. That's my objective. Like, that's the thing that I want to achieve with my team. And obviously, if we get to BlizzCon, we would want to win it too. But until then, the objective is getting there.
Sure. Okay, so you're not really looking any further than that then? You're just sort of taking it week by week and trying to get those wins in?
Yeah. I mean, daydreaming is not going to help that much. We want to be focused. We're taking every opponent seriously. We're preparing for every opponent differently. And we're going to try to do our best to get there.
All right, cool. Now, your first game wasn't streamed last week, but how did it go?
Well, I think we won quite a bit of matchups after the pick and ban stage. And then in the blind pick stage, we also got 3 good matchups, 1 mirror match and 1 bad matchup. We won all the matchups that I think we were supposed to win. And we lost the mirror match, we lost the bad matchup. So everything went exactly how you'd expect it. And no surprises happened within the games. It was just like Q Block beat Quest Warrior, and Town Druid beat Hunter. And it was nice. Like, it was really kind of paying off for how much practice we put into the format, and we knew matchups even on more like off-meta decks. But nothing is really off-meta because a lot of classes have playable decks at a tournament level, so we just had to play a little bit more and just extend our matchups by a little bit. But I'm happy with how the communication went. The spirits weren't down when we went from 2-0 to 2-2, and we kept playing and we won the last game, and I'm very happy with that performance. Because there's like, in my mind, there are 3 spots during a series where you can see how a person is behaving. First of all, it's at 0-2, then it's at 2-2, and then it's if you actually lose. These are the most mentally testing spots. Because if you win, everybody's going to be happy anyways. But there are some tough spots that I hope we can overcome. And we faced the 2-2 spot, we were fine there. So let's see how our team behaves after we lose or after we start 0-2. I'm happy with how they... Yeah, I'm happy with how they took losing 2 games in a row. And yeah, I think we can handle even worse stuff, but you never know. But these kind of moments kind of get us more together.
Great. There are a lot of decks in the meta right now. Does that make this tournament a lot more difficult to prepare for?
Yeah, it's very difficult to prepare for because there are so many approaches you can take, but I'm at the same time not sure, because you can just bring the best decks and figure out on the spot what you kind of want to ban, as long as you have like a main ban in your head, and then just ban to counteract your opponent. So I'm not sure if you can run all the situations down beforehand, because there's so many possibilities, as you just said. But the format is still in the works for us. Like, we didn't understand it yet. We need like 1 or 2 more weeks to fully comprehend some small things about it. But by then we're gonna get a new expansion, which is gonna shake things up anyway. So
right.
It's a constantly adapting format.
So we're going to hear a little bit more about what RDU had to say about the expansion later on. Raven, one of the big things he said that sort of struck to me was he thinks there's several different ways of thinking while playing, or ways that the team have to think. And that's when the team is 2-0, 2-2, and 0-2. Did you have any takeaways from that?
Yeah, for me, I think he's striking an important point there. We talk a lot about communication within HGG, right? If you don't communicate well with your team, that can cause some huge issues. But for me, I think the important part is, if you go 0-2 down, whether you're playing on your own or not, you feel an extra layer of pressure that if you lose one more game, you were done, like you were out, right? That's just the way it is. You've lost the match. So if you multiply that by you feeling that pressure, then having 3 other players also feeling that pressure and aiming it at you because you're the one piloting, that is something that's very important and could throw some teams off or could throw some singular players off. So it is important to just stay calm and just keep focused and play properly and not get, swayed or shaken a little bit by the score. And I think Radu is one who's, at least for him, has got by far enough experience to just stay chill throughout the whole thing.
And from what he was saying, it sounds like that whole team's communication was good throughout this time. So that's good to hear. We will see them playing this week. Now, next up, and this is the most important part of the broadcast, and I really hope that everyone listens very carefully, because I have here 72 important facts about Hearthstone, about World of Warcraft lore, and it's actually quite important that everyone knows. So I'm going to read these out to you now, and I'm going to test you on it again next week. So pay attention. 72 facts. Here we go. Fact 1. Raid leaders handle it and hit it very hard is a reference to the popular Onyxia wipe video. If Defender from Noble Sacrifice lives via Knife Juggler, Sword of Justice, Stormwind Champion, Mind Control Teching a Blood Imp, or Redemption, when he attacks, he will say, "Ha ha! I lived!" Number 3. if you play mind games while your opponent has no minions in them.
All right, enough of whatever those two were going on about. Let's talk about something that's actually interesting. As some of you guys might know, one of my big passions in Hearthstone casting is breaking down individual plays for minutes or sometimes hours at a time, but I very rarely get to do that. So we've snuck in here nice and early, we're recording this, I'm going to try and force it into the broadcast somehow, because at this point, what are they going to do? Fire me? So the play that I want to talk about in particular is from Indonesia versus Norway. It's Malagos Druid versus Big Spell Mage, and we're in a position where the Malagos has already been used by Hunter Aces Norway. They're looking to find a position where they can just win the game by throwing what limited burn damage they have left at the face and end the game. And so we end up with a board state that looks like this. Now, there are a couple of plays that become quickly apparent in this position. You can hero power down the Arcane Artificer, which of course you want to kill. You have a Ferocious Howl and you have a Nourish in your hand. That seems like a strong turn to cycle through. But better still is the UI play, where you UI the minion, then you also get a 5/5 on board while drawing even more cards. That seems like the best position to be able to end the game on the following turn with burn damage, right? Well, let's take a look at what Norway did. That's weird, right? Why would you UI the face? Why would you leave an armor gain minion in play just for the sake of pushing 5 extra damage to face? It feels like you're losing damage. Well, let's look at the position they're in and what they're trying to achieve. Firstly, they are trying to stop Indonesia from ever playing Frostlich Jaina. If that ever happens, if they leave a turn where that can happen, they're basically locked out of the game from this point. So you can see with the damage to face, this can't be a Frostlich Jaina turn as long as they draw the second swipe from their deck, which Indonesia will respect them having. So you lock out the Jaina. Secondly, in their 10 remaining cards, they have an Innovate and 2 copies of Lesser Jasper Spellstone. If they draw that Innovate and a copy of that Spellstone, they can then kill the Arcane Artificer without sacrificing any damage. So suddenly, when you start to think about it, this play makes a lot of sense. So are Norway geniuses? Well, yes, but I don't think so in this case. If you rewind time to the simple play where you just UI the minion, everything that I've just said is still true. You're still threatening lethal, you're still preventing Frostlich Jaina being played as long as you draw that copy of Swipe, and you've taken the armor gain minion off the board, which is just so much safer. So it comes down to a very simple equation of how often do you draw the Innovate Spellstone play versus how much armor gain do they get on average from that Artificer. And in the game that we had, there wasn't even a polymorph used, so the chance that they can cast a 4-mana spell and a 6-mana spell and gain the full 10 armor is actually really, really high, whereas the chance of drawing Innovate Spellstone is only around 30%. For me, this is a classic example of something that you will see a lot in Hearthstone Global Games, and that's the power of 4 very powerful Hearthstone brains finding a play that's too complicated. As soon as a good Hearthstone player sees that out of saying, oh, there's an Innovate and a Spellstone left in my deck, you want to go for it because your brain tells you it's a better play because it's a more hidden play, it's a more complicated play than the simple line. However, in this case, the best play was the simplest play, which is just UIing the minion. And with that all said, we will now return you to your regularly scheduled, light-hearted community show.
72. Playing a Swashbuckler against Ragnaros from the Major Domo provides a coin instead of a card. And there you go. That's all 72 facts. I hope that you've memorized all of them, and I hope that you found it as interesting as I did.
Yeah, I already knew all of those, of course. I do try and educate Subtle when possible on something, pretty important, but he does ignore me, so at least he has all those numbers for him as well now. So let's check out what's coming up this week, though, so you can see some of the matches we have that I cannot wait to get started tomorrow.
Yep, day 1 of the Hearthstone Global Games Week 2. On the broadcast, it will be Slovakia versus Spain, Poland versus South Korea, China versus France, Germany versus Romania, and finally the United Kingdom versus United States. Raven, do any of those games stick out to you?
Yes, all of them, Falk. It's actually pretty stacked today.
Yep.
For me, I'm obviously keeping an eye on South Korea versus Poland, but again, France, one of the singular, on paper, best teams coming into this tournament, going up against China is going to be pretty huge as well.
Yeah, we've got lots of caster wars going on. I mean, we've got your prediction versus the production team's prediction. We've got a Gaskin's prediction, the United Kingdom versus Sottle's prediction, traitor, the United States. As we see the rest of the games coming up this week, Wednesday on stream and off stream. One of my teams, Italy, will be playing there. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that, as they didn't play on stream last week.
Yeah, also one I'm looking forward to there as well is going to be Brazil versus Greece, two very strong fan bases, and they get a lot of support from the country in terms of global games. I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out on top on that one. And also as well, like we said, this is week 2, so the second you start going 2-0, it's looking real good going forward.
Finally, the Thursday or Friday broadcast, depending on which time zone you're in: Australia, Canada, Taiwan, Thailand, Hong Kong, Malaysia on stream. Again, this is a great live. It sounds silly at this point. We're sort of calling every lineup stacked, because actually this year there are very well-known Hearthstone players on almost every team.
Yeah, it is, because the way this year's worked with the points requirement to actually get voted onto the team, it's literally the top point scoring players were put forward, and then the community's voted for them to see who would actually get on the team. So you're just going to have an overall stronger competitive team than we did have last year in most circumstances.
All right, and now a question for everyone watching on Twitch right now. Who is going to win between the United Kingdom and the United States? In order to vote, type !vote and then the team that you would like to vote for. I don't want to, make the viewers too biased, but Raven, who do you think is going to take this?
Yeah, so that's a very different question to who do I want to take this, right? So in all honesty, I think USA will take this. They didn't win last week, of course, but then again, neither did UK. But USA just has an incredibly strong team. Instead of being, maybe not has the depth of pool that some other regions have. It's very easy when you say something like Europe, or even you look at somewhere like Germany. But in general, the team that was selected for USA is incredibly strong and includes some of the best players in the world, not even in America.
Can't argue with that at all. I'm sure Softel is very happy with his pick, the United States. Now, while we let you guys watching vote, let's take a listen and see what RDU had to say about the Hearthstone Global Games once the expansion comes out. So are you looking forward to the new expansion coming out? Do you think that's going to change things in your favor, or is that going to be a struggle?
I'm always looking for new content. I like the meta right now more than I ever like any meta at the end of an expansion, but I'm always looking forward to new cards. So basically, if you tell me that the expansion comes out in like 2 more months, I'll be fine. But if you tell me the expansion comes out tomorrow, I would also be fine. I'll just adapt. It's a card game. I like adapting. I like playing with cards, and I like challenges.
Fair enough. So was your strategy coming into week 1 literally just play the best decks, choose your ban on the fly, and work it out from there?
No, for week 1 we had kind of like a strategy after we saw their decks. We just like banned their rogue, and then from there on we got a little bit surprised by their picks. I think they picked some suboptimal decks that we would have led through anyways, and that gave us the chance to just ban some of the better decks, and we ended up with like 4 classes that I would call like tier 1 in this kind of format, and 1 class which is pretty bad. But at the same time, they kind of targeted the tier 1 decks, but we just overpowered them because our decks were just like, I think, more powerful.
Okay. You mentioned that your team's communication was good. What do you think of your team now overall? I know that originally you weren't too happy with the voting results.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I wasn't too happy with the voting results. I kind of expected it. If you followed my stream, you know that I really wanted Tom in the team because I think he's a mini genius, and I couldn't get him in the team for sure, even though I promoted him as much as I could have. And after the voting was done, I was not super happy, but I'm a professional, so I worked as much as I could with my teammates, and now we have a pretty good synergy. Would it be better in other situations? Who knows? It doesn't matter.
Sure.
I'm living in the present, and I'm focusing on doing the best I can with my teammates. And right now we have pretty good communication, so I'm very happy with that. Maybe even a bit better than last year, mostly because last year Moody couldn't travel and be here on site with us. Here we can all be in the same room, and it's much easier to communicate when you have all the people at your house.
Yeah, that's great. It's always more fun to watch that way as well. How much work have you put into your game for next week so far?
We put a couple hours, but today we're gonna like finalize it. So I'm looking forward to it. There are also like some stages of preparation. Like, I think you should prepare the decks and the strategy, depending on what team you face. But afterwards, you should wait until you see their decks. And after you see their decks, there's another wave of strategizing, because you can make some particular strategies that work only against their lineup specifically.
Right.
But beforehand is more like trying to predict what they play and like bring this and this against that to give yourself the opportunity of creating the strategies afterwards. So it's a pretty complex format. I like it so far.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very complicated to prepare for. I guess having to bring all 9 classes in itself is a lot of work, because you have to choose one deck for every single class.
Yeah.
How do you balance preparing for the Hearthstone Global Games and preparing for other tournaments, and also streaming, and also your personal life?
I don't have that much time for my personal life, but I basically like stream in the afternoon, and then after streaming, I take like a small break, maybe eat something, and then do the Global Games preparation. But the Global Games preparation is only kind of like 1 or 2 days at the end of the week, and then 1 day after, you know, the bans, and then you play 1 day. So it's still quite a lot of work, but I think it's worth it, and it's good. It's like work you enjoy. Is it really work? And yeah, it's not super easy to like stream every single day and also prepare for tournaments, but I'm trying to like pick and choose only the good tournaments, and Global Games is definitely one of those. So yeah, I think I have enough time to put into it.
That's great to hear. Okay, final question. Do Romania have what it takes to win the Hearthstone Global Games?
Yes, but it's very difficult to win it all. We want to take it step by step. We want to first qualify to BlizzCon. That would be like a dream come true. And afterwards, we're going to try our best to win it, obviously, because we don't go there to just show up.
Absolutely. All right, thanks so much for coming on, RDU. Good luck with your game next week, and hopefully we'll see you at BlizzCon in the finals.
Thank you for having me.
That was a lot of fun. I've got to say, RDU is one of my favorite players on the scene, and it's always great to have a chat with a player while they're in the middle of a tournament and, you know, really getting stuck in.
Yeah, it's something you don't really hear too often, right? A lot of the time you see players during a tournament is either sat down playing a match on stream, or they're having like a winner's interview, for example, and that's about it. You don't get to see the mindset mid-tournament and general approaches.
All right, good news, everyone. We have the results for the poll. Who is going to win, United Kingdom or USA? Okay, I'm actually quite surprised it wasn't more of a landslide than that.
I think people in USA are still waking up, so I think there wasn't that many people to vote for them. But I think there's a pretty visual representation there of USA on paper just having a stronger team. But still, you know, when a Twitch chat ever write about anything is my question.
Oh, Lorinda was saying last week the Twitch chat can't spell. Now you're saying that they never write about anything. I've not said anything mean about you, Twitch chat. Okay, just want to.
Falk playing it safe, not saying anything mean about anyone is his usual game plan, to be fair.
Speaking of me not saying anything mean about Twitch chat, this is the part that, let's just put it this way. If I get asked any questions I don't want to answer, I'm just going to pass them over to you.
Absolutely fine.
So, production team, what have we got? Hit us with the first question. I saw a lot of there are deck lists.
Right.
There are deck lists. I mean, personally, the #1 place I look for deck lists is Twitter, because you find usually that teams or players in the teams or you know, Hearthstone Esports accounts tweets them out regularly. Yeah,
and this is going to catch me out a little bit, but I believe there will be full deck lists being sent out or posted on the website somewhere, but I'm just not exactly sure when it is, if an exact time. I know you guys are demanding, but they should be posted roughly every week, a couple of days after the week's been played out. So they should be around, and if not, I'm sure you can tweet at plenty of people that do the lists on a community aspect as well. Some people do just make websites with the lists on, a few guys. And you'll also find lots of breakdowns with, you know, different analytics of how certain teams have done, what their deck lists were, etc. So again, my personal favorite place to look for that kind of thing is Twitter. Do we have another question? What was the team selection process? Well, this is relatively straightforward. The top 9 players based on Hearthstone Championship points were selected in each country. The player with the most points was made the anchor of the team, so they got a guaranteed spot. And different members of the Hearthstone community in each country
had to vote for the rest of their team's players.
Yeah, one thing that was good and changed this year was last year you only got one singular vote as a voter yourself, but this year you actually had 3, so there was the anchor plus 3, and you could actually vote for the full team you wanted as opposed to one singular person, because let's be honest, it's very difficult to find only one person you want to see on a team of 4.
Yeah, and the other thing that changed from last year is that this year all of the players in the pool are based on Hearthstone Championship points, whereas last year I believe that was just the anchor, and the other 8 players were selected based off of other things like, you know, if they're a big streamer, etc. So this year it's all about the competitive Hearthstone players, meaning that the power level of most of the teams have shot up.
Yep.
Do we have any more questions? We do. Can you read fact number 30?
I can't remember which
I already.
it was.
Do you know what? I already read these. I don't think I need to do this. You've already heard them all. Just watch the VOD.
The funny thing is, Falk did not make these facts up. There's legitimately, the paper has 72 facts on them
Actually,
as well.
I would like to read fact number 12, which is the HGG production team is the best production team.
Definitely a Hearthstone fact.
Definitely a Hearthstone fact. All right, I think that wraps up the Q&A. Oh.
There you go. Input. Live input. I like it. Can teams change deck from week to week? They can, yes. Basically, teams will be given a day in which, or a date in which they have to submit deck lists for the whole team, and those are the lists they then play if they've submitted them by the deadline. But yes, this will rotate because, for example, the expansion will be out relatively soon, which means HGG is just going to get thrown up in the air and see where it lands in terms of deck lists, in terms of how quickly these teams can assimilate the data and create the lineups and the best versions of every class they want. So definitely they can change decks.
I really cannot wait for the Boomsday experiment. I think that's going to do some crazy things to this tournament. Right, to wrap up the show today, we're going to show you what time the tournament starts, or the broadcast starts every day this week. So starting in European time, there you go, 10 a.m. tomorrow, 4 p.m. Too fast for me to even read it. 3 a.m. Friday was that. There it is in Korean Standard Time, and then we've got it in PDT for you there. So.
Yep, all the start dates, it's going to be awesome. We're going to do the same. It's basically rinse and repeat from last week. A few different changes in terms of how many matches we get to cast, but still the same amount across the whole week. So plenty more HGG.
But that about sums up everything we had to tell you this week. Raven, do you have any last comments?
No, just ton more great matches coming up this week. This will be the last week for me for the foreseeable future casting global games. I was asked to, do what Ravens do and fly around and do a few other things. But it's been awesome week 1. I expect this week to be great again. And I expect you guys will have a lot of fun continuing the rest of the season. Yeah, we will be indeed. Starting tomorrow, again, it's going to be 10 a.m. European time. Don't miss it. We'll see you then.